I'm ready. You ready? Hello out there, and welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Frazier. Joining me for tonight's festivities, sitting in the hot seat, my co-pilot, as usual, none other than the Grey Wizard of Historical Knowledge himself, Mr. Eric D. Smith. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Smith?
I am doing quite well.
Trying to figure out what's going on with our time counter over there. It was like flipping out for a second. Joining us in the engineering booth, none other than our own in-house Bond villain, Mr. Devlin. Mr. Devlin, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good.
He'll be joining us for, he'll be piloting the episode, as it were, right? Because I'm now the captain, right? I sit back and I tell everybody else on the bridge what to do. I'm feeling pretty big about myself, man. I gotta tell you.
And I'm your Jesus. I'm your co-pilot.
Dog, right? Dog is my co-pilot, right?
I'm your Jesus.
So I got a pretty good selection, a cornucopia of subject matter to discuss this evening, all queued up for us. But I got some shout-outs and some things I just wanted to cover. We got some cool stuff coming up. Devlin, if you could bring that up, the first, yep. So we got a really awesome comment. It turns out we have a fan in Germany, right? It's Plasma Vortex made a comment and said something about podcast greetings from a German fan.
Hey.
Which just surprises the hell out of me, because whenever we do articles where there's names or language, I usually just destroy it. Like, I can't believe someone in Germany actually watches this and enjoys it. So
I have a lot of German heritage, but none of that is in language of the German language at all.
So maybe someone out there, maybe Plasma Vortex could tell us how to say, I'm sorry for murdering your language in German.
Yeah, to anybody that you would have watch our show.
Sorry in advance, because it's going to happen again, I'm sure.
I took a foreign language. I took American Sign Language as my foreign language in college. Yeah. I just thought it would be fun to have a foreign language that you really weren't talking in.
Well, and it's a very functional one as well.
Yeah.
For sure, right? Yeah, it's kind of cool.
It.
It is a language. What killed me was when you were explaining to me how there's dialects.
Yeah.
Like, all sign language isn't the same, right?
No.
There's dialects.
There's dialects between here and like 50 miles away from us, up in Columbus and the capital. They say things slightly different than they do down here. And of course, France has its own sign language, and Saudi Arabia has their own sign language, and almost every country has their own sign language, and it's not unified in any way.
Yeah, it's nuts. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We also got a comment from Reed Dillashaw. Yes, Reed, those are Fender Lace pickups. He was actually looking through and was asking about the guitar, but that's the setup I use. I like that the best. But to answer your question, all right, so it's fall, scary movies, things that go bump in the night, right?
Right.
And we're heading into Halloween, the Halloween holiday season and all of that. So, question to kick off the show for you, Mr. Devlin, and you, Mr. Smith, you first, is what is the scariest movie you have ever seen?
I would think Alien.
Yeah?
Yeah, Ridley Scott's Alien.
That's funny, because I was just talking to Devlin about that the other day, that I think it's probably one of the scariest movies ever made, and you rarely see the monster. It's just the way they filmed it and the way they built the suspense. Very much like Jaws, the original Jaws was that way, too.
And all the implications that movie provided to my young mind at the time. It was like
in
78,
space,
79.
No one
right?
can hear you scream.
Right. I mean, that in itself is just a scary thing to think about. Like, geez, I hope nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the very first successful sci-fi horror blendings, the implications that came out of it, such as where they picked this up at, what happened to that place, the colony,
Oh, okay.
Because they went to that spot where they picked up the alien to begin with, right? So it spawned a bunch of more movies. That one movie was just so thick and dense in that sense that it spawned all these other movies.
Right.
You could tell that same kind of thing. And
But it also had this really cool art that sort of went with it too.
Giger.
What's his name?
Giger.
Giger?
Yeah, a lot of people say Giger.
Okay.
HG Giger, I believe it is.
Okay.
Maybe HG.
Yeah, and it was
not
like
sure about the initials, but yeah, it was Giger. He was a German artist.
it was fascinating stuff. And I remember, I think the first time I was exposed to that was in Heavy Metal magazine, maybe, which I don't even know if they make anymore, but really cool to see if they do. I bet it's a web page now or something like that, right?
Omni, Starlog, and Fangoria, and Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
The magazines I miss.
Well, there's got to be something out there taking that place now, right?
The whole internet.
So, Devlin, Mr. Devlin, scariest movie you've ever seen?
That means I have to actually watch a scary movie, right?
To date, scariest movie you've ever seen. Didn't even have to complete it. Like, it freaked you out so bad you couldn't finish it.
Well, I usually stay away from horror movies, you know? But I was forced to watch one recently.
Yeah, which one was that?
It's called The Witch.
The Witch.
Yeah. I wasn't...
Straight up horror.
Yeah, I was peer pressured. It is. It's like... It's just gross, gore, horror... And a lot of it's suspense. Like, The Witch only gets, like, same thing as Alien, not that much screen time.
Right.
So, you know, but it was very gruesome and just terrifying. Apparently people say that's not, like, a very scary movie, so I don't know.
What's your scariest comic book story you've ever read?
Ooh, I think
Good question.
It wasn't scary. It was just really good.
Or creepy.
Like, creepy.
Creepy.
Yeah.
That works, yep.
The Marvel zombie universe.
Okay, all right. Mine would be...
Is that the Walking Dead stuff? No, it's something different.
No, it's if the Marvel universe was taken over by zombies, like
oh, cool.
It's insane.
I didn't
like
even know that existed.
Well,
very powerful zombies.
Yeah, exactly. The superheroes are zombies.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, like Spider-Man ate his wife and stuff like that. It's just really dark.
Nom, nom, nom. What you were saying.
Well, mine is an X-Men comic book. That, God, man, I don't remember what the title was or the number, but it was the one where Kitty Pryde was left alone in the mansion, and this demon thing attacked her, right? And she has phasing power, which we talked about before, and she's running through the thick mansion walls, trying to escape this thing, and it's following her, and it's just blasting through them, right?
Right.
It was such a scene that it invoked that they actually used it in a movie. It's the same thing they did when they had Kitty Pryde phasing through the walls, and Juggernaut was chasing her.
Okay.
But almost frame for frame in that comic book, it was this demon that they picked up, right? And she ends up getting it in front of the twin jet and blasts it with the jets and kills it. Mostly. Which is sort of what happened in Aliens.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any connection there.
Right? I mean, the whole connection with phasing and Alien and that whole being one person being chased by this really bad thing, and it's a really outclassed situation.
Right.
And the intensity of it, intensity of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all pretty interesting. And
it's funny because Alien really leveraged, and so did Jaws, really leverages that whole primal thing of being prey to an actual predator.
Yeah, and being literally out of your element.
And how many stories have been written?
That's it.
You know?
That's it. That's it. And there's a Christmas tree.
Well, tis the season, apparently.
What episode number is that?
Let me see. Let me fact check that real quick. It is
152.
Guess what just came down the chimney? It's like a Christmas event. I'm going down the rabbit hole.
It's a weird comic, man. It's not, but that's one of my favorite comics of all time.
That's wild.
It is the Uncanny X-Men number 143.
143. Okay.
1981.
Yeah, that's when I picked it up at a store and unwittingly read that, and it scarred my mind.
It really did, huh?
Yeah.
Like, it stands out. That's funny. I mean, I guess it's not funny that you were scarred. But
well, not scarred.
That was tragic. Sorry, Eric.
No, it was great.
To be
man.
insensitive.
It was great.
So I got some good news coming up. We've had Mike Barnett on the show a couple times. My Navy buddy, who has been progressively losing his eyesight, and he just got a role in an independent film that they are making in Idaho. The article's gone now, but it's our first article up there, Devlin, and it's this really cool concept where what they did was they made this film. This is from KTVB TV, and I'm guessing in Idaho. But the headline of the article is Idaho filmmaker looking to cast people with disabilities in new movies. So, and the screenwriter's name is Doug Cole. Well, Mike has gotten in contact with me and kind of been able to put Doug and I together, and he's going to be coming on here soon. I think it's this Saturday, actually, with Mike, and we're going to be discussing this movie that's getting ready to be released. And this is like a full budget, production. It's a independent film for sure, but and it's just got this really interesting thing. Instead of having abled people, portraying these people with disabilities, they just went out and cast actors that actually had the disabilities. Yeah. And I bet what we're going to find out is we're going to get an authenticity from this movie. For these people in their sort of position that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise,
the
right?
Ability to truly deliver some lines, I imagine.
Well, there's this whole thing, like I always like it in movies when they cast people that were in the military in roles of people being in the military, because it kind of not that like other actors can't pull it off, but I just think there's like an interesting authenticity that comes with that.
Same thing with sign language too. It's not every show that actually, when someone's signing, sometimes they're not. Yeah,
sometimes they're just flopping their hands around. Yeah. That's got to be kind of insulting.
Well, I never really knew until I actually took it, and then I was like,
"What is this bullshit?" Huh?
Yeah, like in Jericho, right? They're actually signing in Jericho that TV series.
Did you know that there was you must know about this story where the sign language person for one of President Obama's speeches was just like making stuff up and was standing up there like making up sign language as they went. Yeah, it was pretty wild. I see the video and I'm like, oh boy, that's an error. Like, how did that happen? I guess someone shows up and says, yeah, I can speak sign language. And if you can't, you're like, looks good to me.
Right. Like, yeah. If you don't know, you don't know, man.
You can be buffaloed real easy. But anyway, I digress. So Doug Cole will be coming on. Hopefully we get this all pulled together, and we'll be discussing this movie and his screenplay with Mike Barnett and sort of how this project came together. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be an interesting conversation. Mike's always an interesting guy. He's an old Navy buddy of mine, and he's he's just super easy to talk to. So that's coming up. But anyway, Mr. Devlin, moving us on to the first article of the night. You ready for some learning there, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, learning.
So this one comes from Unilad, the Joker movie.
Yes.
Okay. Big freaking deal, apparently. This thing is causing all kinds of issues, which makes me want... Devlin's back there like doing a dance, like, yeah, baby.
I really want to see it.
It's like
how long has it been since someone said that about a DC movie?
Right. Good point, Batman. Michael Keaton.
Yeah, maybe so, yeah.
I think it's got to go back.
Was it?
I think some people like the new one.
I was thinking about what happened in the movie theater at The Dark Knight. Did you hear about that? Someone dressed up as somebody just shot up a movie theater during the Dark Knight.
When The Dark Knight came out.
Yeah.
Right. And I know a lot of people, I'd seen some articles about that as well, where people had some concern that extra security might be needed and this kind of thing because of the subject matter of the film was pretty I don't know, alarming.
I liked almost all those DC movies. I didn't think they were that bad.
No, I didn't.
I do admit that first Superman movie was basically Jesus Christ story and a savior, but aside from that,
it was very messianic.
It was Superman.
Right?
Aside from it being obviously messianic, yeah, it was Superman. The other ones were good, I thought.
What about Batman vs Superman? What was your opinion on that?
So anyway, Unilad says Joker viewers around the globe walk out of cinemas and ask for bans. Mom always said, can't say nothing nice. Moving on. Here we go again. People across the world are walking out of Joker screenings, calling for the film to be banned. The new movie from director Todd Phillips with Joaquin Phoenix taking on the famous infamous villain has brewed critical acclaim, but also immense controversy. As reported by Deadline, Joker is heading for a $188 to $194 million worldwide opening weekend.
So what was the problem?
Well, it's making a lot of money, and it talks about and displays really controversial shit.
Okay.
That's
why people like it, right?
A plus B always equals C kind
Yeah,
of
I
thing.
suppose.
You know?
I thought that was implied in the advertisements, but
amid the relentless discourse the film has inspired, people have been tweeting their discontentment with its content, pointing out its glorification of violence and how we're encouraged to sympathize with the character.
Oh, well, that is kind of the motif of the Joker a little bit. I mean,
Should never empathize with how whack jobs get there, right? That's a bad thing, I guess, or something.
well, if you're just watching a movie, I guess it's no different than one that flew over the cuckoo's
nest. Sure.
It really goes to show how much people did not read the comics. There's even worse Joker storylines in the comics.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm certain.
He's not a good guy.
Especially like the graphic novel versions of them. They got really fucking dark.
Oh, yeah.
Those things were pretty rough. Yeah, man, I don't know. This
the motif of the story, right? Like he's the Joker, but how are you going to turn that on its other side? You got to be real dark, man.
Right, for sure. And it's coming out in October.
Mm-hmm.
It's horror movie month. The only thing that they didn't do was say that this is a horror movie. And I wonder if they had just said, "Hey, this is the Joker horror movie." It would have been like, because there's horror movies I'm sure that have been far worse storylines that have come and went that nobody's had any issue with.
See how unpredictable
but because
these
it's
DC
like a
movies
superhero
are.
movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's got everybody's, panties in a wad.
All you have to say it's a Joker movie, if people that know the Joker just know.
Can we all agree that Joaquin Phoenix, is kind of weird anyway, kind of creepy? Like everything he's ever
definitely
been
got a
in,
character.
He's kind of been creepy to me.
Yeah.
He was creepy in Signs. He was creepy in Gladiator. He's creepy in this. I don't know if
I thought he was pretty creepy in what was it? Walk the Line. Is that where he played Johnny Cash?
He gave that edge that Johnny had, man. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad actor. He's a fantastic actor.
Right.
He just creeps me out and
A little
everything. He's
creepy,
like, what is it?
Christopher Walken.
No, he's okay. He doesn't creep me out.
Christopher Walken doesn't creep you out?
No.
Okay.
No.
No?
No.
It's who I'm thinking it is, right? The guy that dances in the okay.
He's got a cool voice.
He actually is a dancer. Yeah, he's got a cool voice.
Yeah, he does.
He likes cowbell.
He does love some cowbell,
I know
man.
who he is.
Anybody that likes some cowbell.
No, man. What about Steven Dorff? I believe it's Steven Dorff.
Yeah.
That dude, he's you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yep.
that guy creeps me out in everything he plays.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that. He does have a very unique set of features.
Yeah.
Sort of like a brutal Rutger Hauer kind of feel to it.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So, I lost my article. Oh, Devlin's bringing us up. What are you bringing up, Mr. Devlin?
Not important anymore.
It's not important anymore.
We went way past it too quick.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So the film synopsis reads, Joker centers around the iconic arch nemesis and is an original standalone story not seen before on the big screen. The exploration of Arthur Fleck, Phoenix, a man disregarded by society, is not only a gritty character study, but also a broader cautionary tale. Rating 15 in the UK for strong bloody violence, language, and R in the US, it's a thundering, volatile triumph of a movie that isn't for the faint of heart. If anything, the flurry of flustered tweets go to show the film did exactly what it intended to do.
A volatile triumph of a movie. It's like they're talking about something that what's his nuts did.
What's his nuts?
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino.
Okay, that's What's his nuts. Okay, officially, Devlin, put that in the notebook. What's his nuts is Quentin Tarantino.
Like glorifyingly violent or whatever they were saying. It sounds like he directed it or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or a John Wick movie. I mean, how violent are those? Or, it. Okay, but okay. One viewer tweeted after seeing the movie, "What a fucked up movie. Literally just walked out of a screening of Joker. Way too terrifying to be there with all of this going on, the way the movie glamorizes gun violence and mental health issues." Another fan said, I'm watching Joker with my brother and sister-in-law, but I needed to find an excuse to walk out for a second because this movie has made me the most uncomfortable I've ever been at a theater in years.
Wow.
Woo!
Interesting.
This is the modern version of the explicit lyrics label.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, I know for Mr. Devlin back there, makes him just want to see it all that much more.
It looks so cool.
Right?
I've seen the trailer. Oh, my God.
Put me in that boat, man. I'll row with you. Now I definitely want to go see this. Woo. Okay, so I've never walked out of a movie, but the Joker, I came very close. Would have walked out of the Joker after an hour if the missus would have let me. Don't do it, folks. See, this is just building in more mystique. Like, can you make it's like the haunted house? Can you make it through it, kind of thing, right? Anyway, so family members of the infamous Dark Knight Rises massacre in Aurora, Colorado, also recently penned a letter to Warner Brothers with concerns about the movie. Quote, we are calling on you to be part of the growing chorus of corporate leaders who understand that they have a social responsibility to keep us all safe, end quote. In 2012, James Holmes opened fire in Aurora Cinemark theater audience, taking the lives of 12 people and injuring a further 70. Reports circulated in the fallout claiming he called himself, quote, the Joker, although authorities have denied this.
So what do you think? Think they're responsible for inciting violence in some way with this movie, or would you say that if people choose to emulate this, it has nothing to do with this?
Me personally?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or
I think it's a. I don't know that an artist is responsible for the actions of those that interpret the art. Okay. And I know that can get really ridiculous, man. But I mean, it's art's supposed to challenge you sometimes, and it's supposed to provoke you, and it's supposed to piss you off, right? Like that's its place. And I get really weird about when people start saying it's art until it goes past this line, and then somehow it's something else.
Gotcha.
And I struggle with that. I tend to come down on the side of the artists.
And we're speaking philosophically and not politically, like Hobbes and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Devlin. Sorry.
No, it was just that what I was going to say is, I mean, I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm excited to see the movie because I want to see what everyone's talking about. But in order to make this character, you have to go to a dark place. The Joker is a evil, psychotic character, and if they did it evil and psychotic well, I feel like that they did their part for storytelling. This is how people are taking it, and
he's supposed to be an incredibly disturbed individual, right? So given the given the canvas available to the storyteller today, I guess
all the examples and knowledge of poor mental health and examples of what could happen to reflect that adequately, they've got to make this movie.
So this seems to have, come on, scroll down a little bit more. This seems to have, however, those sort of landed right on some nerves, which probably means that it's very, very topical.
Yeah.
And probably right on the money with some things. I've heard that saying, the sting in any rebuke is usually the truth. When things tend to piss you off, you got to look for the hidden. There's something about it that's pissing you off, and usually that thing is the truth, right?
It also seems to me like there's something to prove in actors in Hollywood that takes this particular role. There's a bit of a mythology that's grown up around Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. Right.
And others, right? I mean, that goes beyond just him.
Well, particularly him is one of the ones that I seem to always hear about when they talk about iconic roles.
What was it? It was Jack Nicholson who did the other Joker?
Yeah, he was the first. He was the Joker in the first Warner Brothers Batman movie. Yeah.
Him and Heath Ledger were probably the best Jokers in cinema. And if people are reacting the way they are about this Joker, I feel like he'd be on that list. However, I do got to say, though, I am not a fan of Jared Leto's Joker.
no love for Leto, huh?
No, that was a little bizarre. That whole movie kind of landed flat on me. I got to the end of it and went, well, I guess everybody got their chance to do their thing. Like it's the whole movie.
Everybody got their paycheck.
He wasn't psychotic. He was just kind of a dick.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from that Joker.
Yeah,
Are you saying you wouldn't have been intimidated by his performance?
I would have been scared of what his like lackeys would do, not what he would do.
So see, there you have it, right? Keith Ledger, and he's got this mythology, right? And the next guy that tried to do it kind of fell flat, right? So Joaquin Phoenix, an excellent actor, he's got to go a little further. It might be. Yep. It seems like there's like an escalation of the Joker character. Just a little more method
on the whole thing, which means to basically become a sociopath.
A little bit,
of some sort.
I mean, it seems like an unhealthy role to have to play.
In response, Warner Brothers issued a statement extending their sympathy to the families while acknowledging that gun control and violence is a critical issue. However, they add that Joker is not an endorsement of real-world violence. Ahead of the film's much-anticipated release, the Los Angeles Police Department also confirmed there would be high-visibility police presences around screenings. And I think it's probably smart, man, given what it is.
We're right. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a legitimate topic. This has nothing to do with that. Can you make sure there's police around the building constantly? I don't. It's got nothing to do with that. But just make sure there's police there.
Okay, so following up that article, this one comes from Business Insider. Right after this, some people fled a crowded New York movie theater after a belligerent man began cheering and applauding on-screen murders during Joker.
So you need those police. For this has nothing to do with that. So get those police.
I present to you concern and result. Scroll down there, Devlin. That's actually from the. It looks like it's at least an Associated Press photo. Where did we scroll? Where
is this cite it? I've been trying to have you cite
Insider.
it. You didn't say that.
I did right up front. I think I did. Well, okay, it's Business Insider. Cited maybe again. The Joker movie's opening weekend left some moviegoers in New York uneasy with the extra layers of security, intense on-screen action, and frightening incidents inside a theater. A young man was loudly cheering and applauding the on-screen murders, sent some people heading towards exits in a crowded theater in Manhattan's Times Square on Friday night. Social media users in California, Florida, and Tennessee posted photos of police security sweeps and safety notices, including costume bans at theaters across the states. What you got?
I don't know how to word this exactly. it's just that guy probably definitely had something going on, probably, yeah.
Well, look at the subject matter. I mean, who's it going to attract?
Right. Well, people. I feel like people are taking this in the sense that because of the movie, people are acting this way when that's not the case. That's just not the case.
I think it is. I think it's cause and effect. I think it's like turning a light on and here come all the moths. Some of them moths are batshit crazy, right?
But,
but that's the same thing I think he's saying is that they're already batshit crazy. They're just showing up like a moth to this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not because of the movie that they're turning crazy.
They're there because of the movie, but the movie didn't make them that way.
Yeah.
It's fantasy. It's supposed to be fake.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Some people don't get that.
Right.
So some people think
this guy might have not gotten that.
Extra layers of security, intense on-screen action, and a frightening incident inside a New York theater combined to create an unsettling experience for some moviegoers who went to see Joker on its opening weekend. A young man who was loudly cheering and applauding on-screen murders sent some people heading towards the exits in a crowded theater in Manhattan's Times Square on Friday night. Other patrons yelled at the man who spit on them as they left early, said Nathaniel Hood, who was in the theater. That has methamphetamine written all over it, right? I mean,
so this is New York?
Yeah, New York City, with Times Square.
And apparently some of those people were true New Yorkers. They're just yelling back at the guy.
Yeah, right.
Quiet down.
I was in the military with this guy, Jason Ashcraft. We went and see Natural Born Killers in the theater, and he was laughing during it. And it was like, Jay, quit. He was just a weird guy. But anyway, quote, I was scared. I'm sure a lot of other people were, Hood said in an interview conducted by Private Messages. Social media users posted photos of police, security sweeps, and safety notices at theaters in California and Florida, And in Tennessee, a drive-in theater banned moviegoers from wearing costumes to a screening of the R-rated Joker, which scored an October box office record with $13.3 million in earnings.
It's going to do well.
Yeah, especially because of this.
Yeah.
Because of now, there's a mystique that's being built up around it, right? The Warner Brothers film, directed by Todd Phillips, presents the backstory of the man who becomes Batman's classic foe. Blah 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 blah. Let me see here. What something different? About halfway through, when Joker started killing people and monologuing about how society is evil, and he started clapping really loudly and incessantly for a good minute, people started yelling for him to shut up, but he kept clapping and cheering like mad. Hood said the man started clapping and cheering again really loudly during a climactic gunfight. He said, and got belligerent when people told him to be quiet. Finally, security came and got him. He was still being interrogated outside the theater when we came out, said Hood. Plenty of police were around the theater, he said. So there you go. Like I said,
they recognize that it's a light for drawing crazy moth people too.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? When you think when the nuts are going to come out,
right? Just show up with the police and
throw in some extra security there, maybe,
take them away.
And hey, if that's the cost of doing business, that's the cost of doing business. It's a smart way to do it. But I don't think you should be telling Art that it's got to shut up or stop or anything like that. Hey, bring up the next one there, Mr. Devlin. Okay, Top Gun Navy pilot. This is from Bro Bible, by the way. Did you watch the interview?
What the hell is Bro Bible?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just curious.
It's Bro Bible, man.
Right on, dude.
That means it's got to be super legit. Again, I just pick the headlines, not the sources. But I actually do use aggregators that are fairly decent. However, I will say this, that there's been a change in content because I've also started using Reddit as part of my source process. And Reddit has provided me with a lot more colorful articles to discuss. So that's where some of this is coming from. So I make no claim as to the validity of Bro Bible, but this corroborates or sort of goes hand in hand.
Sure, you were asking if I'd seen the Joe Rogan podcast
with what's his name, Tom. What was his name? Commander Firmer, something. Maybe it'll say here in the article, but
I seen about an hour and maybe an hour and 15 minutes of it.
You have to zoom out just a little bit, Devlin.
Did you?
I watched the whole damn thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got me all fucked up.
That's what you were saying. That's what you were saying. I remember. Yeah.
And I couldn't wait till you got on here so we could talk about it, man. But it has me all messed up. But on November 14th, 2004, about 60 miles off the coast of California, near San Diego, Commander David Fravor, Fravor, save us, witnesses something that could be from out of this world. While investigating an unidentified flying object over the Pacific Ocean, Fravor saw an aircraft that had incredible capabilities. Fravor gave eye-opening details about his UFO encounter on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast.
He's seen a giant white Tic Tac
that just defied the laws of propulsion and shit as we know it today.
Defied the laws of all Tic Tacs as well, I'd say.
Well, for sure.
Just metaphorically, I suppose it looked like a Tic Tac. But it's what he said, right? He said it looked like a big white, probably like the size of this table.
It was interesting because at the end of that podcast, he said that they keep calling him into the Pentagon and then showing him pictures and going, did it look like this?
Like,
and he just goes, no. It looked like a big Tic Tac. Yeah. Like there's no other.
You showed me a featureless white light-looking thing.
Yeah, and he's like, no, it didn't look like that, right? David Fravor served 24 years in the military, 18 of which was a Navy pilot. Okay, I worked around naval fighter pilots every day. Okay, when I listen to this guy talk, this is no bullshit. This guy has been in the military. Like I'm attesting to that. The terminology he was using, the way he just, this is the way these guys talk to each other. Like Rogan had to keep stopping him going, what the fuck's that? But he was like totally in that sort of like police officers have their own vernacular and engineers have their own vernacular. Well, so do fighter jocks, right? They all have their own vernacular. So, and the thing that he said, which was my most hallelujah moment, it's something that we've discussed all the time, is in all these conspiracy theories that involve the military, right? There's always a big cover-up. somehow.
From the military.
From the military, from the people involved, right?
And we've even used that as a stock phrase for when we talk about cover-ups and stuff too. And then we've sort of here recently do the commentary talking about how, well, technically it could be corporate or it could be
government. There's something else. There's in my assumption there's got to be something else involved. But
I think I know where you're going with this, though. You're talking about where he said that he thought somebody would ask him or debrief him about the situation, and nobody really ever came to talk with him.
Worse than that, yes, that was certainly more a substantiation. But my attention, statement has always been that it's bullshit that the military is involved in this, because people in the military can't keep a secret. And anybody that's actually been in an active duty unit knows that. Yeah. And he said that. He said when they brought, by the time they got in and brought the gun camera footage,
they knew they were going to get shit.
They knew they were going to get shit because the rumor was already spreading through the air wing. And then it goes from the air wing to ship's company. I mean, it just goes through the whole boat. He said it within, half an hour?
Right.
The entire boat, all 5,000
other
plus
than
people.
duty, what else do they have to do? Other than duty, like any other story is probably pretty interesting.
So this claim, this constant claim that the military is involved in shit, the disembodied mug, and is covering stuff up is complete crap. And I think he's, to me, that was like, but yeah, brother, that's somebody who actually knows what he's talking about. There's no way you're going to get a large military vessel, a Navy ship to hide a secret and swear everybody to secrecy. No, that
whole ship full of black ops.
Holy shit, dude, does good news and bad news travel fast in the Navy, in the military, period.
This ship has 6,000 black ops on it.
Right.
It's an aircraft carrier full of black ops.
Double top secret, right? He went to Top Gun, was the commanding officer of VFA 41 Black Aces, which before it was VFA 41, it was VF 41, and they were in the hangar like VF 31, and they were just down the hangar from us, the Black Aces, and had deployments in Iraq that began during Operation Desert Storm. Because of his impressive credentials and because of the video evidence, his UFO story is one that needs to be taken seriously. I agree. But he's not saying little green men.
No.
He didn't say that at all.
No.
Commander David Fravor was flying the FA-18 Super Hornet off the coast of San Diego when he encountered an unidentified aerial phenomena. The United States government allowed the 2004 Nimitz incident footage to be available to the public for release. Fravor was pilots of the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group in 2004. Okay, and he left the ship around noon or 1 p.m. The FA-18 Super Hornet he was flying was completely unarmed. Fravor was originally supposed to do a training exercise, but it was canceled so that Fravor's jet fighter and another plane could investigate an unidentified flying object. We have no idea what we were intercepting, Fravor said. So when they were heading out there, it was like, hey, there's some shit out there.
We've been seeing it.
And we see it on radar, but we don't know what it is. Can you guys just go
on the podcast, too, that they'd been seeing this for some number of weeks before they sent him out to see what it was.
Yeah, and it had been popping up. Like he said, he was looking at the radar tapes, and there was more of them. This was just the one that they got to, and that they actually put eyes, visibly could see. Then the controller explains the backstory about this unidentified flying objects. Quote, hey, sir, we've seen these objects for 2 weeks. They've been coming down, We need to go investigate. We want to, hey, Devlin, I need to scroll. We want to know, too far, what these things are. He says, we're off the coast of Mexico, real world vector. We have no idea what we're going to go look at. Probably a drug runner. Fravor speculated, because you get the drug runners going up and down the coast. The weather couldn't have been better, and the visibility was ideal. The water was perfectly calm, no white caps. It's literally a perfect San Diego, California day, and we see white water. So they're flying along, and he looks down, and he can see something's disturbing the water because the rest of the water is completely calm, so it like stands out.
Something T-shaped or something, I think he thought. Said.
Yeah, he said he thought the disruption looked about the size of a 737. Like a cross or T-shaped in the water. Actually, it was kind of the shape of a cross, and it's pointing to the east. So we're looking at it because that kind of draws our eyes, Fravor said. The pilot in the other plane says to Fravor, hey, skipper, do you? Fravor said, That's about all he gets out of his mouth. Fravor asks, dude, you see that? What is that thing? So there were two aircraft. There were two FA-18 fighter Super Hornet aircraft. They're two-seater aircraft. So they have a weapons system officer they call Wizzo in the backseat. It used to be a Rio in the F-14, right? And they have a pilot. So there's 4 people at different altitudes flying around this thing, talking on their radios and confirming what the other person is not only seeing with their visible naked eye, but they have special instrumentation and stuff that they've that they can look at this thing with, and they recorded it, and that's the gun camera footage, if you will, that was released to the public now.
Yeah.
So Devlin's pulling up here. He says that 737s go from 102 feet to 138 feet in length. So it gives you it's pretty big what this thing's zipping around back and forth in this cross pattern over the water. That's why he was half a mile away, but he's like, I could clearly see it, and he's right at 240 knots or whatever. These guys were flying. It's on the footage. You can see their airspeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Half a mile is really, really close going that fast, right? Sure. I mean, that's you're in on something. That's looking in the guy's eyes kind of thing if you're dogfighting. He says, what we see is this white tic-tac looking object just above the surface of the water pointing north-south, and it's going north-south, east-west, just radically moving front, back, right, and left at will. Fravor said that the UFO and it's moving around the disturbance, the white water that we see. It's about 40 feet long, and the way I estimate this is, I've got a lot of time fighting other airplanes about the size of a Hornet, Fravor tells Joe Rogan. So this is a guy that's used to sort of looking out his window, judging by the size of dogfighting an airplane. He knows how far away from it he is. You follow me?
Yeah, sure.
Smaller the further away it is. So he's got a real kind of idea for looking at shit and getting an idea how big something is.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's saying that this tic-tac object is facing in one direction. Let's say you're north.
Yeah.
It's north-south, right?
Yeah.
But it's doing this.
Yeah, it's doing...
Or it's doing this.
That's the way I interpreted it. And I think when I watched the podcast, he was making like a cross pattern over top of like a cross laying on the water. Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah. But he said it was just flipping back and forth super rapidly. They couldn't. It was, he explained it to Bob Lazar because him and Bob Lazar have talked as like a ping pong ball, like bouncing around super quick inside a glass or something like that. Or one of the other eyewitnesses described it that way. Some of them described it that way. It's moving super quick, and then it seems to figure out he's there. He says, this is with our eyes, not sensors, so we're looking down at this thing, and the first thing I think is it's a helicopter, Fravor explained, because helicopters typically stay above 200 feet. When we're out of there, we're pretty far away from the ship for a helicopter for one of ours. So they were way too far out to sea for it to be a Navy helicopter. They do tank them, but it was still kind of out there. But anyway, I don't want to, you know what? Go watch this podcast. I don't want to go through and recount this guy's entire story. What I want to talk about of this, though, is that if this shit's like legit, right? If this is some sort of actual object, something that exists in the material world and is not some sort of weird, I don't know, atmospheric anomaly or whatever the fuck, it is, okay? This technology pretty much renders our entire military infrastructure worldwide pretty much moot. Like if they have these kind of capabilities, and I don't know what this they is, whether this is a terrestrial entity, like you said, a private sector entity of some sort, a foreign military. If it's a foreign military, guys, it's over.
I don't believe
the weapons race is kind of over right now.
Yeah, and that would mean something if that were the case, right? They would do something, right? They would take over. So clearly, there's no government that's got control of this technology or that use it against us. Or what would be the point?
Right. Apparently. Yeah, because you would think that there would be an automatic, and then people would make the argument, ballistic nuclear missiles have existed and nobody's ever used them on each other. Yeah, but
they weren't flying over top of a lake doing weird shit, isolated from everything else. They were found probably ready to be aimed and fired toward destination points, right?
Right. Yeah.
They weren't just like found over a lake somewhere randomly, just fucking around, like doing something so mysterious. I mean, the missiles are going to blow up something, right? They're going to hit you and blow up. They're not going to be doing some weird cross thing.
Well, what is this?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's not that, man. I mean, you wouldn't be, if you were a government, would you be doing that in any?
Right.
What's the hardest thing to imagine, that you do something obscure and weird with this technology like that, or would you be using it to dominate and control? And
well, okay. So does this not have like a weird sort of Bond villain vibe to it? I'm sort of. Am I crazy for saying that?
I don't know, man. There's nothing that they don't seem to be affecting anything. They're not disrupting. What are they?
Well, later in the podcast, he was talking about a friend of his from the Navy that was a helicopter pilot, and then like sometimes the Navy submarines practice firing torpedoes. Well, then they like bob up to the surface somehow. They probably have a mechanism, and then they go out and they hook them with a helicopter and they pick them up because they're expensive. Right? You just don't let them sink to the bottom. You reuse them, kind of thing. And his friend was in an air crew that was going out, and they had a guy on a cable, a Navy like rescue swimmer or a diver that was going to go down on the cable and hook up to this thing, and they were going to pick it up and take it back. And the pilot, as they were lowering this guy down the cable, looked down and saw into the water a large form coming up towards the torpedo that was bobbing on the surface of the water.
That's so fucking creepy.
And he yells in the intercom, "Pull the diver! Pull him up, and to get him up," because he was headed for the water. And he said that it came, whatever it was, came close to the surface and sucked the torpedo under the water and then retreated.
Well, that could have been like a whale or something.
And was gone, right? Like that was, I'm not saying it wasn't, but their contention and this David Fravor's contention was that if this thing has the mechanism to be able to transcend from over 80,000 feet, or basically the edge of space, or maybe even in space, all the way down to the surface of the water in like an instant, and then also go into it doesn't seem to be affected by
water
being different
transition.
than air being different than space. It's not how it propels itself at all.
Right.
So his contention is that these things are in the ocean too, like they're in the water.
Yeah, they may be.
And that's just another version of it. But it was really cool because he's talking like this shit's been happening for years.
Yeah.
People have been seeing stuff. They've been reporting it, but nobody kind of just knew what. That's okay. It's reported. Like there's actually notice to airmen's, NOTAMs, that they put out that goes out and that says, "Hey, there's weird shit out here.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open."
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Like, well, what do you mean there's weird? Yeah, we don't know what it is.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about it.
But and nobody. Yeah. What's the
to talk about? Right.
What is it?
Right.
We don't know. We got
Still
some gun
now,
footage.
There's nothing to talk about.
Right.
All he's seen was a light moving around.
Well, and this Tic Tac hovering.
Well, yeah, that's the light. It was like a bright white light that was in the shape of a Tic Tac.
Yep.
I mean, he couldn't make out if it was metal, pure energy, a thing that had a bunch of lights on it. He couldn't make out any shapes, and it's not his fault.
Oh, he had
you can't make out any of that on the other stuff either.
No, and he had a great story about that. He said that he was someplace and some person that's really kind of, I can't remember who it was. Okay, so just again watch the podcast, but where he was talking about some person that was really prominent in sort of the UFO conspiracy theory community came up to him and was talking to him and said, "Well, do you know about XY, this event?" And he was like, "No." And the guy says, "Well, okay, well, you must know about this event." And he was like, "Nope." And the guy goes, well, what about this event?" And he's like, "No." And he goes, "Well, you don't know much about UFOs, do you?" And he said he looked at the guy and went, "But I actually chased one. Have you?"
Oh, shit.
And the guy goes, "No." And he goes, "Well, then I'm the expert." and he won't go down that road of the little green man or he's like, "Look, I don't," he's like, it is what it is. Here it is.
Yeah.
In its entirety.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Well, like I told you when we talked about this, I said,
but it's got me freaked out, man, because I believe that that these people, I mean, now all of a sudden it's not taboo to start talking about this shit, but to find out that the frequency with which even the military is admitting that this is happening is alarming, because if it was a foreign entity, another country that was exhibiting these type of technological advances, okay, that's a big deal, right? That means there needs to be someone needs to be explaining this and really investigating this. And it turns out that nobody is. They don't, so we don't know if this is.
Well, I think the military has tried to a few times.
There's like a program I think it was called ATIP or something like
Blue
that.
Book, there's Project Blue Book or something like that.
I think the next article, Devlin, is the Pentagon, right? Admitting, to your point, it kind of segues here. Says, this is from the New York Post. The Pentagon finally admits it investigates UFOs. The Pentagon has finally uttered the words it always avoided when discussing the possible existence of UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomena, and admits that it's still
UAPs.
Yeah, well, that's their vernacular, right? And it still investigates and reports of them. In a statement provided exclusively to the Post, a Department of Defense spokesperson said a secret government initiative called Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program did, past tense, pursue research and investigation into unidentified aerial phenomena. And while the DoD says it shut down the ATIP program in 2012, spokesperson Christopher Sherwood acknowledged that the department still investigates claimed sightings of alien spacecraft. So again, what does it mean? I don't know. But this is different, right? This isn't hey, it was a weather balloon kind of shit anymore.
In my opinion, since I've been 10 years old, they've always been investigating this. I used to get like UFO magazines and stuff.
Yeah, but they not openly admitting.
No, not
that they were
openly.
Investigating.
But it was still all the people who were fancied themselves UFOologists. They knew that these stories existed, and they categorized and cataloged these stories and stuff. So I mean, they're not talking about anything new happening, and there's no more frequency. Just like you said, they're just now talking about it more. It's more like an admission that they're in the dark as much as we are.
Right.
Like for a while, and look at this mechanism. Think about what this mechanism means in a logical sense, right? For a while they were investigating, they were denying that they were real at all, with the idea that if they could figure out what they were, they could capitalize on it.
For sure.
Right? But you guys don't worry about this. But at some point, they've just given up on trying to figure it out.
Hide it anymore.
Right. They're like, yeah, we study them too. We don't know what they are. There's some more weird shit that will freak you out, but we don't know what they are. And so, you know what I mean? Like,
and if anybody out there can figure this shit out, we'd love the help.
Yeah, they're sharing their collection with the UFOologists. What do you guys got? This is what we got.
You really think it's just at a point of desperation now where they just gotta admit it, kind of thing. It's gotten to that point.
It must be so prevalent that people that normally wouldn't want to have shit talked about them is willing to be on shows and talk about it. And the government's like, yeah, okay, we're not denying it. They keep bringing him to
Capitol Hill. They keep bringing Commander Fravor to Capitol Hill. And he keeps going up there and going into meetings, and he won't say who he's with, but he just says highly placed, top men, that whole highly placed government officials. He says they keep bringing him to Capitol Hill and asking him to explain it. And he says he explains it to these people, and they go, "You're joking." And he goes, "I'm not joking. I'm not making anything up. I'm just telling you exactly what me and 3 other people and our aircraft instrumentation all saw."
Why don't these guys show up together? Why is it just him? Just out of curiosity.
I guess the other pilot, she's been to Capitol Hill a couple times, or was actually going to Capitol Hill and was going to the Pentagon over this issue for a long time. And she called him because he was her skipper at the time. He was the squadron captain of the squadron, right? And she called him and said, hey, they keep asking me about this thing. And he was like, well, give them my name. I'll be more than happy to talk to him too. It just so happened that it's his gun camera footage. Okay, but she is absolutely, and her air crew and aircraft are just as much as a corroborator. Actually, they're the corroborator in this, because they're the other completely separated system that's seeing the exact same thing. So you can't sort of chalk it up to some weird
How does it have
lensing or something, huh?
How in what way does it bother you?
It bothers me because of the level of physics that this thing is exerting. Okay. Now look, I think that we're, and I've told Devlin this too. I think what we're actually standing on this the precipice of is a major technological evolution of some sort, right? There's some quantum leap
That somebody has capitalized on and been experimenting with and using. And
I don't know that that's the case, or if we're just starting to witness an actual physical phenomena that does occur somehow in the weird laws of physics that people don't understand, where we're starting to erode through to something like another. Like I'm willing to go deep in the weeds on this, right? But it fucks me up because now it's not something that's just sort of fanciful to talk about and imagine maybe possibly being a thing. It fucks me up because it's a real thing now. Like I have a lot of confidence that now I'm not saying I'm not on board with it being extraterrestrials, extra worldly, or any of that.
But it's just as real as it ever was.
It's more real to me now than it's ever been.
But it shouldn't be. It's been here a long time.
Don't tell me what it shouldn't be.
I'm just saying, it's been here since ancient times. I mean, it shouldn't bother you.
And you've pointed that out to me too, that look, like these cigar shapes, the cross thing, we've seen that in that painting that you like.
The Nuremberg wood carving.
Yeah. Nuremberg wood carvings, right. That thing. And we've had examples of this throughout, like you always point out, that these things tend to sort of always be told to exhibit the same sort of behavior too, and their ability to rapidly accelerate and
the Vedic
and all
texts
of this.
And the Vedic texts, some Egyptian papyrus, and there's some Sumerian stelas and stuff. All have these sorts of things in them. Have you heard of rods?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. Yeah, Devlin's being a champ bringing that painting up. Can you make that full screen, Devlin?
That was something that was supposed to be seen by everybody in this German town. And all these different people described it and what was going on. And this was supposed to be a picture of what it was. All these things were supposed to be flying around, and firing at each other and stuff. And today, people say that what they were witnessing was a weather phenomenon called sundogs.
Right.
So maybe bring up a picture of sundogs. It's not necessarily looks like that, but but it is what they think that they were seeing back then. Of course, other explanations are mass hallucination. That's also been given as an example for some of the things that happened in Egypt when they said that grain got moldy, wheat got moldy, and ergot fungus was on there.
That just looks like some sort of weird lensing effect to me.
It is, but it's an atmospheric lensing effect. It's not a camera or anything. Like the sun will actually look like that.
I guess in the void, one's brain could kind of look at that and go, holy shit, there's some giant ball coming at me with light projecting out of it or whatever.
Yeah,
how you would interpret that.
Yeah, I know, right? How would you?
Yeah.
And there's other kinds of sundogs too. That's just like one example, but there's other kinds. So I don't know, man. I mean, I suppose I'm a bit cynical.
Yeah, the other thing is sundogs don't actively jam radar.
No, or fire weapons at each other, presumably.
Right, kind of other pieces of that story that's like, what the hell's going on, man? Yeah. That's why it's got me messed up. It's got me messed up because now I feel like, and I don't mean necessarily messed up entirely in a bad way, like I'm losing sleep over it. It's got me messed up in the sense that it's occupying a lot of my
thoughts
and stuff now about implications and possibilities and the different things that it could be. I don't necessarily assume that, and I was telling Devlin this too. It was like, look, if this is a technology that exists and has the capability to move mass like this, okay, its ability. I mean, there is no war. That's over. Okay, if they really wanted to hurt us, it'd be like bonk, we're done. Right? They could. So obviously, that's not it. So if it is some sort of intelligent life, whether that be human, terrestrial, or otherwise, it doesn't seem to want to kill everybody because it obviously could very easily if it wanted to.
And it's been here for a while.
In a long, long, long time, right?
So that means also too that if it's been here for a long time, it must have some kind of an interest in this particular place, right?
Yeah.
So that almost in and of itself logically precludes extraterrestrials.
Sure.
Who by most definitions wouldn't have a particular interest in this planet. Nothing they couldn't find anywhere else, presumably.
Other than like the observational zoo hypothesis, right? That's
yeah, but there wouldn't that would only be a situation if there was some law like a prime directive like in Star Trek where everybody's agreeing to do something, and there would still be incidents like they showed in Insurrection, where they were watching these people, and then there was a malfunction, and they got exposed, right? And then there was cultural contamination. But I would imagine that in real life, if that were the case, it would be hard to get everyone to agree to this rule to begin with. That there wouldn't just be people ignoring it, coming here with spaceships, like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something, right? Or that there would be technological issues at some point because of the second law of thermodynamics and entropy. There would be something that would happen that would unfold. There would be some kind of a catastrophe or failure of technology.
A reveal of some sort.
Right, and you would see it. And it would happen.
Well, that's what Fravor said. He goes, if that is a piloted vehicle, he goes, that guy was getting his ass chewed when he got back for letting himself be seen by us, you know.
But it also implies that they have things like gravity control, so that they're not smashed at the back end of their spaceship or whatever when they're maneuvering like that, right?
And you know the
inertia
other
dampeners,
not cloaking itself somehow, so it's invisible to radar, actively jamming their radar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is a different
and just being able to fly away at high speeds
and
where
just be like
gone,
I mean, like a bolt of lightning.
Right. So I mean, but my point is that it doesn't seem like they come from afar, right?
Right.
That if they've got some kind of a personal stake in what's going on, or if they're tied to this world somehow, then that would indicate that they were in some way indigenous, right?
Right.
So here you got to start talking about things.
Well, if they can actively jam radar, that almost seems like they're indigenous,
right? Like
so
they've got the knowledge.
They're aware of what that system does,
right? And
somehow.
when they use it.
Of course, ufology, you know, the hardcore UFO say, no, they've monitored us and learned that's how we fire our weapons.
But see, then you have to decide, why were they doing that? Why were they taking all that time to figure it out and then come down and do it?
It's a wormhole, man.
There'd have to be a reason. But trying to keep it as wormhole free as possible. And we're not assuming that they've watched us,
right?
And they have this ulterior motive, right? And they're being insidious. If you take these things out, that only leaves interdimensional travelers or time travelers, which could be considered the same thing, right?
Sure.
But people who are either from the past or the future, or from the next plane or multiverse next to ours, that's different enough where they found a way to breach ours, and our laws of physics just don't apply to these guys, right? They're not working with that, so they're not confined by it, right? And so perhaps that's why it's a situation where they're doing things that we don't understand and things that don't directly hinder or hurt us, because it's not their intention to do that. And if you consider something like a person who has such a detailed image of what time would be, if there was a thing like a person that could come back in time, right? They would have a map of time, and maybe all they're trying to do is distract somebody to not be in some place at a certain time, and that effect will cascade down into a better future.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah. So maybe they just need to distract you. Maybe there's nothing that they're doing to begin with. They're just doing something weird. Like, hey, dude, go out there and do something weird and draw the attention of these guys so that this thing doesn't happen over here.
So they don't see this other thing that we're doing.
Yeah, and they go, yeah, I mean, who knows? You know, it could be. I'm just saying, you know, it's definitely not like you see in all the science fiction shows where they're coming and they're taking the resources, or they're hurting us, or they're using us, or any of that sort of thing, right? It doesn't seem like there's that kind of an interest. If there is a species out there, I don't think they'd be that interested in it.
I think of the delta in the technological difference between this thing, if being, again, and I'm putting a giant if, maybe. But if you think about this, like Elon Musk is building rockets and shooting cars into space and zinging them around Mars, and he's got nothing there's nothing that Tesla, or I'm sorry, SpaceX has demonstrated that even registers on the scale of what this is capable of.
No,
okay?
It's definitely not working with our physics.
No,
it's not.
Somehow it's and then again, now we get back into Lazar, gravity warping, and all this other shit, and I don't.
Well, that almost excludes atmospheric phenomenon too, because atmospheric phenomenon would also follow the laws of physics and would have some conventionality to it as well.
So speaking of Elon, his famous car, the Tesla, famous Tesla Vandal was caught by Sentry Mode, turns herself in. This comes from Futurism. It's never a good idea to mess with somebody else's car, especially when the car is a Tesla. On Monday, Electric reported that Tesla Model 3 owner Alan Tweedy was at his daughter's soccer game when a stranger badly keyed his car. What the perpetrator didn't know, that the Model 3 Sentry Mode, a surveillance feature that makes sure nobody messes with a parked Tesla, recorded the whole thing. Right, okay.
And posts it right away on Facebook.
Yeah, and put it right on Facebook. Do you know this, asshole? The video footage went viral on Facebook and drew a local news coverage, according to Electric. Local police received hundreds of tips that allowed them to identify the vandals as 57-year-old Marie Elena Gimeno, who has since turned herself in. Police charged Gimeno with criminal mischief, and she faces damages of around $2,000. As estimated by local law enforcement, she could also be forced to serve up to 1.5 years in prison for keying somebody's car and pay a fine of up to $5,000 for her vandalism. This isn't the first time Tesla Sentry Mode has caught vandals on camera. Back in May, it recorded two men keying a Model 3, and those individuals also turned themselves in after the footage went viral. Proof that Sentry Mode is already paying off for Tesla owners. That's creepy. But obviously very handy and kind of functional, right?
Oh, yeah. It's pretty nice.
I got another Tesla or another Elon Musk article up here next. Mr. Devlin. This one was, for obvious reasons, you'll see when we get the headline, why we decided to pull this one up. This is from Business Insider. Elon Musk says Tesla owners will soon be able to replace their horn with fart and goat noises.
I got to go pee.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, scroll down, Devlin. Come on down a little further. In place of a horn, the next generation of Tesla cars may emit the sound of a goat bleating or fart noises. Welcome to the future. CEO Elon Musk teased customized and movement sounds for future Teslas in a series of tweets Sunday night. That's the tweet. Go ahead, scroll down. It says, Musk said that one of those sounds would be coconuts, an apparent Monty Python reference, which is just funny as hell. You know what I'm talking about?
I've never seen
They didn't have horses, so they used coconuts.
Oh, really?
And they would pretend that they were riding horses, and they'd have people clop the coconuts, so it sounded like their horses' hooves.
That's great.
I don't remember the point of that, but it's Monty Python. There may not have been a point other than that. And used the wind emoji and goat emoji to tease other sounds that would be available. A fan interpreted the wind emoji as a fart sound effect, which Musk seemingly confirmed. He also responded to fans' requests for specific sound effects Sunday night, granting one user's suggestions that Tesla include jungle and rainforest sounds, like getting chased by a monkey or something, or a cheetah. Musk also seemed to open to the idea that Teslas allow drivers to upload personalized sound clips to be used for horns. Maybe just upload our own sound clips. He says, we'll consider. It's not clear how serious Musk is about sound effects. A Tesla spokesperson was not immediately available for comment. In the past, Musk has made unconfirmed statements about Tesla on Twitter that landed him in hot water with regulators and shareholders. He was sued by the Securities and Exchange Commission after tweeting that he had secured funding to take Tesla private at $420 per share and agreed to tweet with more discretion as part of the settlement. Musk ultimately paid a $20 million fine for the incident, which later he said was worth it. Who in the world has paid $20 million for a tweet? That's got to be a record of some sort, right? That's got to be the most ever find single tweet has got to be Elon Musk and for saying that he was going to take Tesla private. So welcome back, man.
Oh, thank you. That's much better. Much better.
That's all I wanted to cover on so go ahead and bring the next article up, Bubba. You just totally missed it, man. It's all right.
I'm so sorry.
You got your little tiny bladder.
I know. There's a lot of coffee today in my life.
Yeah, I was hooking you up, man. Got the new French press. Trying that out. What'd you think? You like that, right?
I do.
This is really good.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I had a cup at work, and then my coworker's like, well, have another cup so I can smell it.
I think I'm gonna probably wrap on this one because I've got an entire another show's worth of topics that I could go into right now. I was just looking up at that, and I'm like I said, I've improved, I feel, and refined my search process. And obviously, these articles were interesting because we went really deep into them. But this last article I thought was kind of cool because Devlin on the last show and I were talking about TikTok, right? And what the hell TikTok was, and you were explaining it.
Yeah.
But apparently, this is from the Washington Examiner, why the Amish, Mormons, and other religious groups are flocking to TikTok. So I went, let's find out. That seems interesting. And there's pictures of people who apparently are those things. Have you ever seen
those Amish girls dressing up or something?
Yeah, well, there's a period of time there. You know, like we just had to think about the Amish with the beer run that went out of control, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Mennonites doing a Fortnite dance or an Amish girl in a horse-drawn buggy rocking out to Billy Ray Cyrus and Lil Nas X? How do you say it? Lil Nas X?
Lil Nas X.
Lil Nas X? Okay. Old Town Road. How old am I? If not, TikTok can help you out. The popular smartphone app available in 75 languages lets users record and share up to 15-second videos of themselves. It's become particularly well known for lip syncing and short skits, which is what you're always showing me, right?
Actually, I also can go up to 1 minute, but yeah, definitely. It's mostly used for lip syncing and short skits.
Didn't you say that somebody famous? You showed me somebody famous that's now on TikTok, right?
Will Smith.
That was it. Yeah.
There's also
like weird videos. They're funny, but it's like, what am I watching?
Yeah, Will Smith, Steve Harvey, and the host, one of the judges on America's Got Talent, Howie Mandel.
Howie Mandel's on. Yes, yes, I've seen that.
Howie's a germaphobe.
I feel like I feel like Captain America. Hey, I get that reference. All of a sudden, I'm relevant. Okay, where am I at, man? I got lost. Okay, formerly called Musically, the app was re-released by the Chinese startup BitDance internationally as TikTok 2 years ago, now worth over $75 billion.
Look, and we're sitting here trying to do a podcast. We should be doing this
TikTok shit, right?
Yeah.
Fuck all this. That's it. We're done.
That's what I'm saying.
No way, I can't do that at all.
No, I could not be that interesting for that long, even for a minute. TikTok is a big feather in China's cap. Facebook's competitor Lasso, launched in late 2018, is almost unknown in comparison. In addition to generating the predictable range of amusing, cringeworthy, and downright odd content, I'll attest to that. Look, he's all dejected. He's like, what? The app is gaining traction among some religious groups who see it as a way to show what they are really all about in an easygoing and fun way while encouraging the ever-elusive youth at the same time. While courting the ever-elusive. I'm sorry.
I've seen this. There's a For You page that you're recommended.
Okay.
And if you scroll past it, like at least once a week, I'll pass by a religious thing.
Okay. And they're doing like TikToks for Jesus kind of stuff? Is that what it's all about? Or
kind of. It's weird. Or like they'll do something where they put messages up that like God loves you and stuff like that.
That's a kind of inspirational
it's
stuff as well, right?
It's definitely very inspirational.
Yeah, I'm not trying to
No.
A guppy love?
It's coming out
That's
weird.
just what it
anyway,
is.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what it is.
Yeah.
When's the last time putting a feather in your cap was actually a viable statement for something good, like accolades?
All I know is when I heard the Yankee Doodle.
Andy?
Yep. And I found a feather.
Yeah.
And I stuck it in my ball cap.
Yeah.
and my mother had an aneurysm that I was going to get myself lice and all kinds of bird diseases. Apparently, you couldn't touch birds.
So it really wasn't a good feather in your cap, was
so
it?
it sort of, yeah, other than that, it broke it for me, and I wasn't really sure what that meant. What does it mean?
Macaroni, dude.
It means macaroni?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
That's deep, bro.
Well, went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat, and called it macaroni. I don't know what that means.
There is a story behind that. I know. I remember it from school. That I think it was my music teacher explained it to us. That there's a significance to it, but I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
You're the historian, man.
Don't know. I don't know.
Asking me these fucking questions.
I don't even know as a historian
this.
when the last time the feather in the cap was actually a thing. I mean, it was at one point, but
what are we doing? This is Scout's version of Yankee Doodle, kids version, full version. Are we gonna have a sing along?
Is there gonna be a meaning?
What are we doing?
I just want to pull up the lyrics for you guys.
Full version.
Dude, I've sang it a million times.
You have?
Haven't you?
No.
Yeah, there it says macaroni. I've seen macaroni.
It definitely has macaroni in it, but that's a tip. That's a nod to somebody of significance in history. It was.
Okay.
Or I'm making this shit up, and probably so was the person that wrote that song. All right, anything else, guys? Any additions? Did we forget any shout outs or anything? I think we got everybody covered.
So I was considering when we were talking the other day about block universe theory.
Right.
And how
really cool stuff.
Right.
Is this going to be another Christmas reference or something about Santa Claus?
No.
Okay.
I was just thinking that, the difference between this theory and what passes for normal theory is that in normal theory, you have the arrow of time, right, which points in one direction.
Okay.
So you could reverse it potentially. But the idea is that time is flowing and that it's fluid enough that you could speed it up and slow it down and maybe travel forward and backward in it, right?
Okay.
And of course, there's actual legitimate ways that this is a possibility by traveling faster than normal, close to the speed of light, or getting close to a large gravity well, which of course slows time down for you, speeding it up for other people, right? It's that relativistic situation.
Okay.
And remember how we were talking about in block theory that time is more like the surface of this table, that everything that would ever happen in time is on this table, and that it's inextricably intertwined with space. So when you hear the term space-time, which we've heard for a long time, right? It's not, time isn't something that flows through space like a lot of times you think about it, but in this theory, it's intertwined with it and doesn't move.
Okay.
And remember a couple of episodes ago, I was asking about how time dilation would fit into a universe that already had everything planned, that literally you couldn't speed up or slow down because it didn't flow. Right, back and forth. So how could you have such a thing as time dilation, right? It occurred to me that
time dilation is like the felt effect of time, right? That's sort of what it is. Okay.
Yeah, and where they get relativistic ideas that it's that
you
time
taking
is
notes
individual.
on all this, Devlin? There's going to be a quiz after.
Yes, it's going to be a quiz.
I didn't study.
But I was concerned about how you might describe block theory time compared to relativistic time, right?
Yeah, you did bring that they were almost competing sort of theories, yeah.
But it occurred to me that you could still get relativistic things. In fact, in block time, that's probably the only thing that you could get is a idea of relativistic things, right? Because time doesn't move or flow, but you might be able to warp it or stretch it or condense it, much like you do space with a massive objects in it, right?
Yeah, sure.
And in that sense,
so not only could you cross distance, you're saying that same effect would also allow you to cross time.
Yeah, the maybe the relativistic functions are that stretching and elongating of time,
right?
That you're not really ever. In other words, you would never truly be able to travel far in time ahead or backwards and change something that would make a different outcome. You would never have a different outcome because you could never jump past your own consciousness. And actually, that's exactly what it looks like with relativity, right? That you can speed time up or slow it down for yourself, but you're never really traveling to another spot in it. Still relativistic to you, you're living your normal time like you would in block theory.
But you just can super accelerate it or slow it down.
Compared to you and compared to the overall size of the universe,
but
it looks
still
like you're
keeps
speeding
moving
at a constant rate. You're just stretching or pushing it back, which from your personal perspective looks like it's going faster or slower, right? But it wouldn't be. You'd just be stretching it like you would be space itself. Like, it makes sense because you'd still have time dilation. Everything that moved fast would still drag on this with Higgs bosons and cause that effect, but it wouldn't imply that time flowed. It wouldn't imply that you could go into a future and change something or the past that would make a different outcome, because you could only stretch and compress it. You couldn't actually travel through it.
Right. That makes sense. You can warp, you can bend it, but you can't. You can't actually.
You can't travel through
break yourself out of it, move up here, and appear back in space-time someplace else.
Just like with light, as a constant speed, you would travel through time at a constant speed. But just like light, when you elongate it or compress it, you get shorter wavelengths that make blue light and longer that makes red. Yeah, you would have that same effect with time, and you wouldn't be traveling through it. It'd only be relative to you that you were squashing it or compressing it.
So what do we call this? Do we call this the Smith Bridge now?
No, I'm not. I mean, they may have figured that all out, right? I haven't studied into it.
On this,
No, I haven't really even studied into it. I was just considering what I knew about it and trying to understand how that might work, how you could still physically see time dilation and still have the setup of it being a block universe theory.
There's a bunch of eggheads out there on the other side of that thing that watch this, though, that probably know of white papers or stuff that's already been.
So
it's
make
like,
comments
hey, you're
me.
talking about blah blah blah. So make sure you guys shoot some comments over.
Right.
Give us some
and
links.
You tell
or
me, because I don't get notifications
I'll let you know.
when.
Yep, I get them all.
I don't get any.
Them. I'm like dithers.
I'm not ignoring anybody. I just don't get
this one does not. No, you go in the trash. I screen it all. I'm very. I don't. Like, I just found out that Reed sent me a message from like a month ago, and I was just like, oh shit, I probably should respond to that. Poor Reed. So sorry, Reed.
We're still shocked that there's people out there that we don't know who you are, and they're listening.
And apparently some of them
we do know
in other countries like Germany.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up there. Great show. Like I said, I got another one programmed up, so we'll see you guys in a couple days. Again, coming up this Saturday, we've got that great interview coming up. So stand by for that, folks. That's on deck. So thanks for listening, everybody. Check us out, www.noshitcast.com. It's KNOWSHITCAST.com. Give us some likes and subscribes. If you really like what we do, share us. That helps out a lot. We love the word of mouth stuff. And leave us some comments. Let us know where we've erred in our ways. And Mr. Smith?
Imagine you're Paul of Tarsus and you're on the roads created by Rome, and you're just going to go around and you're going to spread all this shit that you want people to know about. You're just going to stop in and tell them, and nobody will lock you up in a dungeon for disrupting cells of statues or nothing like that. We'll just encourage you to continue to do what you do.
We'll even talk about it, but we're not implying that we're a religion or that we should be looked at masonically.
I mean that's what happened to Paul of Tarsus. I mean,
poor guy.
Yeah, he did. He was disrupting the cell of little silver Isis.
Oh man, hey, someone's got to do it.
But we wouldn't stop you.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch y'all next time. Bye.